So the question is, do plants have life cycles? But before we get to that part of our lesson, I want you to think about what exactly is a life cycle anyway. So let's look at the word life cycle. So what does life cycle even mean? A life cycle. So I see the word life, and that is a word that we are familiar with. So you have heard that word life before, and start thinking about, what does that word mean to you, life? So I'm starting to think of some words that remind me of the word life, or that I think about. One of them would be the word living. And we know what living things are because we studied this in our animal unit. Living things and non-living things. So life means living things. It also means things that grow. So growing things or things that grow. Also things that maybe change over time. So non-living things, like a rock, would not change over time unless something external happened to it, like wind or water might wear it down over time. But living things grow, and they go through a cycle of growing. So let's think about some of the living things that we know of. So some of the living things that we can think of is like a wolf. And we think about a wolf over time. How does a wolf begin its life, and how does it change over time? Maybe a monkey we can think about. How does a monkey begin its life? How does it change over time? A fish. Oh, there's two of them. Hold on. There we go. So a fish, he's saying hi to you right now. The fish also is a living thing, so it changes over time. It has a beginning of its life, and it changes to the end of its life. And then it also, insects are another type of living thing that we think about, like a bee. Now, not only are insects and animals different kinds of living things, but plants are living things as well. Plants are living. They need nutrients to survive. They need sunlight. They need good soil. They need water to survive. So they are living things. This beautiful tree is another example of a living thing. So the second part of the word life cycle is the word cycle. So this word might be a little more unfamiliar to you. We know what life means. But when we say the word cycle, I want you to think about what it could mean. And in this case, the word cycle means circular, or to go through a process. So when I think of the word cycle, we're going to cycle through something. So let's take a look at some examples. So here's an example of a cycle where you see 1, 2, 3. You can see the arrows going a certain way. It's cycling through a certain way. So here's another example of the water cycle. This is a picture that shows you the water cycle, where how water passes through a cycle. It goes from in the sky, in the clouds, condensation. Then the condensation gets heavy in the clouds and it starts to rain. That's called precipitation, and it travels through into our standing water, like in our lakes and oceans, and then it evaporates back up into the sky, all to do that process all over again. So it's a cycling through the process. So when we think of life cycle, we want to think about life cycling through a process. It's going through a process in a circular motion. So now that we know what a life cycle means, I want you to think about something that you already know of that has a life cycle. What's something that you can think of that has a life cycle? What has a life cycle? If you have a piece of paper and a pencil, I want you to do a quick sketch or write down a word of something that you can think of that has a life cycle. And I'll see you on the next page.